Today, if you would turn to Luke chapter 18. We're going to go down to verse 9 through 14. To some who were confident in their own right, page 1769, if you're in my Bible. To some who were confident in their own righteousness, he looked down on everyone else. Jesus told this parable. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee, the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, God, I thank you that I'm not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week and I give a tenth of all that I get. But the tax collector stood at a distance. He wouldn't even look up to heaven, but he beat on his breast and said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. For all those that exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. We often like to imagine Jesus teaching in a room where everyone's paying attention and having a good time. He's the Messiah after all. Everything that he says is probably worth hearing. He's teaching the disciples, those that follow him, kind of like a classroom with a good teacher, right? They're leaning in, hopeful to hear a good word. Just before this little story, which is next week's sermon, he tells a story about an unjust judge that hears the persistent cries of the widow. Many at this, I imagine, took out their chisels and their colored pencils and crayons, whatever they had nearby, a tablet to chisel in, and wrote down the notes on their scrolls with a pen or whatever. Jesus smiles. He's gotten some points across. But he notices a few people in the back of the crowd. While many of them were attentive, some of them caught Jesus' eye. This moment for them was more like a classroom with a substitute teacher. They probably already knew what Jesus was going to say. Whatever it was, they were not paying attention in the back. Maybe the doodle was more important than what Jesus was talking about. And when he notices these people in the midst of this teaching, who seem to not value what it is Jesus is saying, he turns to them and he says this: 2 men go to the temple to pray. Last week we talked about parables generally historical. There's some sort of catalyst. There's a thing that juts them off into it. And then we look for 2 things in it. Who am I? Who is God? How does this wreck this relationship? But they're historical, but the point is timeless. And so here, our catalyst for this story, there's a group that thinks that they are better than everybody else. I don't think that group needs a lot of unpacking. It's quite possible there are some people in here today that fit that. A friend of mine told me a story one time. He went to a Starbucks to work on a sermon. And when he got in the corner of the Starbucks, there was a guy who had, this is several years ago, so it's a tightly timed at this point, very, 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 very skinny jeans, Tom shoes. He had a monocle instead of glasses. He had literally a monocle on him. And he was taking tiny sips of coffee while reading the news from, now this is a thing that they used to do. They used to print the news on paper. And he was reading it from a newspaper. And he said, I wanted to walk across the cafe up to the Starbucks. I wanted to shake the guy and go, good news. Clothes are made comfortable now. You can wear glasses. They put them inside a thing so that you don't have to squeeze your eye half shut with a monocle. And you don't have to lick your finger to turn the page of a newspaper because you can read it online now. It's good news. The 1960s have passed. We're today. A long time ago, I was a secret church shopper. I don't know if you know this. Do you know this? Anyone know this? I used to go to churches as a pretend visitor to audit, basically, what's their new intake look like? How do they see new guests? One of the things they tell you to do is, hey, how far can you get in the church and get to where children are before someone stops you? Or you run into something you can't get past. So you would go in and just be like, interesting. And you would go down a hallway and then you'd open up a door and you'd be like, in the nursery. And you'd be like, yeah, they just let you waltz into wherever kids are. They don't. This is what I used to do. I used to be a secret church auditor for the UMC. And let me tell you something. You learn a lot. Secret church shopping. You learn quite a bit about different types of churches. And many times sitting in them and waltzing through and doing things, I would have this sort of this notion where you'd be drinking stale coffee, which I don't know if ours is any better or not. I don't know. There'd be stale coffee, some crummy like donuts where it's one donut but cut into like 17 pieces somehow, so you have one tiny little donut. And you're in the back, and there's a 5-person choir in their robes, and they sing out of a hymnal or whatever. And the pew kind of has a weird stains on it, and it's old, and you're sitting in there, and there's so many times I would do that, and in that moment I would say to myself, you should just stay here and worship. That's what I wanted to say. Stay here, you can enjoy this. It's older, it's steeped in tradition, you can learn something from this, the pastor will have something to say to you, but I didn't do that a lot. Many times I would sit and go, this church sucks. And I could probably do it better. To some who are confident in their own righteousness, Jesus told this parable. I'm at least disturbed by this many times. So let's do this together. One of the men who comes in is a Pharisee. It's hard for us to separate ourselves in a modern reading. We've said this before, but Pharisees, we hear it and we think about the bad guys, the ones that hate Jesus or whatever, that plot the death. But we have the end of the book already in mind. But no one who hears this story from Jesus at this time would have this sensation. They would hear Pharisee and they'd go, oh, this is the truth. The Pharisee is coming in. They're the interpreters of the scroll. They keep the law. They understand the history and all these things. Here comes some form of truth. And the inattentive in the room hear the Pharisee is coming in, and they're suddenly listening. This is the Pharisee. These are the guys we should be hearing about, Jesus. You've been telling us about persistent widows praying and an unjust judge, but here, finally, the Pharisees. They observing the law and praying, that the pillar of our society. Tell us how to be more like these guys, Jesus. And the other one comes in, and it's a tax collector. Now that, again, murmurs in some crowd. Maybe some boos in the back of the crowd. The traitors. Collaborators with the enemy, right? These are the worst of the worst. The whispers begin to scatter among those that are listening and saying, what would a tax collector, Jesus, even do at a temple? You'd think they'd get to the very edge of the door and just burst into flames or something. Like, what are they even going to do there? They're cheats. They're the losers. Not even worth the dust on my sandal. These are the bad guys. So 2 individuals go to the temple to pray. A good guy and the worst of the worst. Now, here's what the Pharisee does when he enters the temple. He goes to the very center of the temple, as close as he can get to the court of men, a little closer to the holy place than others could get. He stands, in front of everybody else who's ready to do anything. He draws attention to himself. He throws his hands up into the sky. He raises his head and his voice, and he goes, God, thank you so much that I am not like those other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even this guy, pointing back to the tax collector. I fast twice a week, and I give a tithe, 1/10 of all that I get. In a moment of prayer between Pharisee and God, and between this individual and God, in a moment of honesty at the temple, the Pharisee says, thank you that I am a good person. Look at all these good things I do. In a moment of identity, he just says, I'm not like these other people. Look at these good things. Now, there's a little bit of uneasiness in the crowd he's telling this parable to. Sure, the Pharisee seems to be a bit of a braggart here, but he is right. He's praying, he's fasting, he's tithing. Does anyone else do that? Jesus pauses and looks back at the crowd, and he says, but a tax collector. He sneaks into the temple from a side door. Didn't really want to be seen walking through all the outer courts. So he hugs into the shadows and the wall until he finds a quiet corner away from everybody else. Far, far from the holy place. He could get to the court of men, but he's in the corner in the court of the women. He can't bother to get any closer. He might be spotted. As far from the holy place and altar as he could be. And he casts his head down, and at this distance from God, he beats his breast in shame, and he quietly prays to himself, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. In a moment of honesty about his own identity, The bad guy shows up at the temple and he says, I haven't done good things, and I'm sorry. Now, the crowd he's telling this to is pretty quiet at this point. Jesus takes in a bit of a breath here, looks down at the crowd, and he tells them the punchline to his little parable. He says, I want you to know this and know it very well. This man, our tax collector, not this man, the Pharisee, went home right before God. No one makes a sound. Some people begin to shake their head in a bit of disbelief, and slowly the disbelief turns into a rumbling, quiet anger. How could the tax collector, who's not fasting, who's not giving anything, he's not tithing, how is he the one going right before God? It upends the religious structure for them in a moment. That the people who are Pharisees. They know the law. They work near and around the temple. They interpret the law. They set the feast. They do all these things. How can they're the in people? How can they be on the outside? They're the ones with the right answers. And those who are the least likely are the ones that experience a grace and mercy from God. In a movie, if this is how a movie ended we were watching, like an M. Night Shyamalan movie or something, this would be the twist ending, and we'd all go, that twist sucked. We've seen M. Night Shyamalan movies recently. You don't always need a twist ending. But we would watch it and be like, that wasn't very good. This is a weird twist, I don't like it. That's not how the world works. I can't suspend my disbelief anymore. You went a bridge too far. It's hard for us in the mindset of those who first hear this story that a Pharisee and a tax collector would go to the temple to pray. Our new pope from Chicago goes to a Catholic church to pray, and alongside of him, a child molester. And Jesus looks at them and says, I tell you this, the pope goes home with nothing. The child molester goes home right before God. Are you uncomfortable? Good, you're with them. The best and the worst you could possibly imagine going to temple, and the worst comes home right before God, with the right relationship before God. Of course, you would think the good guy would be, but no, it's not. Those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. I love parables. They're my favorite thing to talk about. Because it's the most eye-opening to always put yourself in the parable. Remember, who am I? How does this disturb my relationship with God? And who's God in this? How is my relationship disturbed in some way with that? You put yourself in to see who you are in the story. First one, God's kind of an ethereal character in this because he's the one being prayed to. Pretty obvious. God in this one is God being prayed to. He's merciful. That's something we learn. He exalts those that humble themselves. He humbles those that exalt themselves. He's apparently not interested in the good deeds or accomplishments, or the comparisons to others, or the nice things that we do in his name. Because the one who exalted all the great things he did, and his relationship with God, goes home humbled. His love can't be earned. He responds to a humble heart. God's love and grace and mercy are infinite, because the worst person we can think of entering the temple goes home experiencing God's grace and mercy. We build our own boxes and barriers of what we believe and who we believe can experience it, and we think they're already inside of it, but we limit it in some way. So here we see God bust those out of the way and be this gracious-filled thing that doesn't look at the words and the deeds, but looks at something completely different. That's who we learn about God in this little story. So the question is then, who are you? I love this one. Because there's two characters you can really be in this. It's two. Do you find yourself identifying more with our Pharisee or with our tax collector? Really, the question is, in a moment before God, do you identify with, thank you, I am not like that tax collector. I'm not like those other people. Thank you that I am not a Republican, that I am not a Democrat, that I don't whatever, that I don't watch this show or that show. Thank you that I don't speak that language or wear those clothes. Thank you that I am not like any of those people. And I surround myself with others that have it figured out. Thank you for making me not like them. Thank you that the church I grew up in this church that I pastor, is nothing like those other crummy churches I used to visit. At least I know iPads with news on them exist and I can wear comfortable jeans. Thanks, I'm not like the cafe hipster. I'm glad I have my life figured out. Or, do you define yourself like the tax collector? I know what I've done, I'm messed up, I'm not right, and I need mercy and I need help. Maybe deep down under it, the real question is not who am I, but who am I not? The tax collector says, this is who I am, and I've done bad stuff. The Pharisee says, on the other hand, I'm not like him. Here's all these things I'm not like. I'm not going to own who I am, but here's who I'm nothing like. Oh, and by the way, here's all the good things I've done. We live in a who are we not world. We live in a time when it's easy and comfortable to be a Pharisee because we can identify ourselves as being comfortable with identifying tax collectors. Because as long as we have a tax collector to point to, we don't have to take ownership of anything. As long as we can find somebody worse off than us, someone more on the outside than we are, we don't have to take ownership of any of those things or anything we've actually done or answer questions about our own lives. We hunt for tax collectors. We love them. We hunt for them so we can live comfortable as a Pharisee. Seems pretty obvious who in this story Jesus wants us to be. There's probably a couple of you that are thinking it's a good story, but I'm not the Pharisee, obviously, Phil. Clearly, I'm the tax collector. I'm humble. I wake up and I say I'm not perfect. I pray for God to have mercy on me. I'm in a good spot. I'm authentic with who I am. But the trick, Jesus is a good teacher. He might be one of the best ever. This parable has a little funny little catch-22 in it that's just great. It's a trap. Do you hear the trap already? As soon as you see it, the trap springs. The moment you say, I'm the tax collector in this story, you become the Pharisee. Because what you're really saying deep down is, thank you, God, I'm not like that Pharisee who says, thank you, God, I'm not like that tax collector. If the invitation is to become more like the tax collector, and we say, well, of course, I'm the tax collector, boom, you're the Pharisee. And the invitation is reiterated by Jesus again to become more like the tax collector. Without comparisons, without judgment, without accomplishments, just an ownership, an acceptance of the grace and mercy and love of God. Many of you know this. I'm the youngest of 7 children. I have 6 older siblings. I have 2 brothers and I have 4 sisters. And we're all really different. Skills, backgrounds, ages. Jenny finished medical school before I think I learned how to walk. I'm not even sure how different the ages are, but it seems like it. I was 8 when she graduated high school. So 10 years apart, I think. Is that right? 10 years? Yeah, something like that. My oldest sister, Jenny, was the brains of the bunch. When I wrote out this sermon, I had to spell check a few words in it. Jenny, that's not Jenny. She went to medical school. She's like a doctor of pediatric medicine at Denver, just accomplished beyond belief. And my oldest sister works for schools as an instructional specialist. She helps train teachers how to be better at teaching. She was a good teacher. They were like, you should teach teachers how to teach. That's what she does. Michelle was the mom of our group. One Christmas, I said, what we need to do is get shirts that have numbers on them, 1 to 7. And it's our current ranking of favorite. And Michelle has number 1. They're all Velcro, so we can take them off and move them as the day goes on. But Michelle, we wanted to stitch hers on to number 1. Couldn't get rid of it. She was the mom of our group. She's the perfect child that the rest of us look to. I don't think she ever got in trouble, right? No, she was perfect. Yeah, my mom's like, no, she was perfect. You're right. My sister Val is a nurse practitioner of psychiatry in Fort Wayne. David was a collegiate soccer player and is now the president of an insurance company. He basically he just brown-nosed his way to being super successful. Just insanely good. He could literally sell you anything at all. He could could get you to sell him a cup of water in a desert. I mean, it's remarkable. My other brother, Eric, is the artsy one of the group. He works as a jewelsmith, metalsmith. He made Ashley and I's wedding rings. He makes jewelry. He's insanely creative, tons of art awards, and he just genius in that way. And when you have siblings like that, when there's 7 of you, and you grow up in Huntington, Indiana, and you all go to the same schools, the comparisons are a part of life. You think you have it bad if you got one older sibling. I had 6 of them, and they were all experts at something. My science teachers would expect me to be Jenny and Val. My English teachers would want me to be Megan or Michelle. When I got in trouble in school, they might say, you could be nicer. Your sister was a very good student. If I tried out for soccer, I had nothing but disappointment that I was not David. I did art, but I never won any gold key awards for anything. And I know that all of us have an experience of this, because one way or another, I've felt it. And I think it's part of our human experience to have constant comparisons to everybody around you. Whether it's like in my last church I served when I came on board and I took over for a youth pastor who lots of people in there enjoyed and liked what he was doing, and I took over, and every move you make in that first year is highly scrutinized, especially by people who wanted to keep him there. Or it's consistent comparisons to the other preachers I have to listen to when I was going through seminary and preaching class, hearing everybody else be really good at this. And at the doctoral level, having them all be really, really good at this. Or I taste other people's food, and I just see how effortlessly sometimes they're able to make something I could never do without an extreme amount of effort. Ashley or Charlie will come to me and be like, "Can you draw this for me?" And I'd be like, "You probably need to ask Ashley, because it's going to be a stick figure if I do it." It's in those situations that you get drug into the trick of this parable. You get pulled right into it. You forget the grace and love, and you fall into the traps that Jesus lays out here of comparison, of lacking authenticity. I may not do this like blank and blank, right? But at least not like blank. See, everyone, I can do this, and I never do these other things. Or we look at that other one and we say, they don't get it. At least I'm better than they are. Or you're a college kid sitting in a pew thinking how worthless the church you're watching is. God, have mercy on me, a sinner. Will we define ourselves as what we're not? Will we only be happy as long as there's something else to point to raise ourselves up? Can we only justify ourselves by noting that we're better than others? Or that we're more successful? Will we say, at least I'm not like that. Look at all the great things I do. Or in a moment of honesty, of authenticity in prayer, will we say, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. I need your love, and I need your grace. To those who are confident in their own self-righteousness, God told them this story. Let's pray.